On today's episode of Big Time Hoops, the podcast, we're joined by the hardest working trainer around. This dude is literally everywhere, working with everybody. We got Ben Teer on today's episode of Big Time Hoops, the podcast. Let's go.
You're locked into the only podcast for Maine high school basketball. The biggest names, past and present. It's Big Time Hoops, the podcast, right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another round, another episode of Big Time, the podcast. Doing things a little bit differently here. I think this is our first guest to come from outside of the county. He's our first... I think this is right, Downeaster, right, Ben? You're a Downeaster?
Yes, sir.
We got Ben Teer joining us, a trainer to the stars, but a phenomenal athlete, basketball player in his own right, too. We're going to get to know Ben today. First question, Ben, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. Just came off a big year. A lot of the athletes, they hit their goals. They grew within themselves. They became more mature on the court, better leaders. Had 3 out of the 6 finalists for Miss Maine and Mr. Maine. So that was something that personally, I've always kind of wanted to. I want to work with all 6, but 3 out of the 6 Miss Maine, Mr. Maine finalists, and a ton of all conference players. So it's just really, really cool, man, to see all the athletes' hard work, how it's paying off for them, how they're hitting these goals, and being recognized as some of the top in the state. So it's been a really, really good year, man.
Yeah, well, I'm catching you right now. It's Thursday night. It's the night before state championships kick off here. So this time of year, busy time for you, or kind of like a downtime, just kind of watching games and watching your kids, or what has the last couple of weeks been for you during tournament time here?
Crazy busy. The last 2 days were the first 2 days I got to spend with my wife and my son for like almost the whole day. I take pride in going to all the athletes that I work with, especially high school and college. This season I watched over 300 different high school games, and that's from beginning to end. And I take pride in it just because I love to see what the athletes are doing in their system in different spots on the floor. What can I do better? What are the most used moves in girls and boys basketball, and kind of what works well for different type of athletes. And so I'm just very hungry, very driven, and absolutely obsessed over the game. So I usually spend all week long at the tournament. And, obviously, number one is to support the players, but number 2 is to see how they're doing and if there's anything I can learn as well.
Absolutely. So as I kind of mentioned at the top, we were a great ball player in your own right. So we're going to go back and just try to trace your history a little bit and find out how you started from, I don't even know the hometown. Is it Machias? You a Machias boy?
Well, originally, I'm actually from Kentucky, but I moved up here when I was about 12 years old. So, yeah, but my family did move to Jonesboro, Maine, and then kind of moved to Machias, Maine, like in the 2 years after that. So
Kentucky born and raised is probably where the love of basketball started right there.
Oh yeah, man, we're obsessed with it down there. Indiana, Kentucky, it's kind of all that there is. So I remember I started playing at 3 years old, and I had a little hoop outside, and I would be on it all day. There's pictures that I look at all the time with my mother, and it's just been something that I've been very passionate about and genuinely loved ever since I can remember.
So here's a good question for you. Born in Kentucky, were you raised in a Kentucky household or a Louisville household?
UK, baby, Big Blue, all the way.
So obviously Kentucky is a basketball hotbed, and they're crazy about their basketball down there. Tell me what, growing up, at that very young age in a basketball crazy state like Kentucky, how's it a little bit different than Maine, or there's some similarities?
It's a good question. I think it's not too much different, because in Maine, everyone is very passionate about basketball as well. And I think that's why I love it so much up here. And it's so easy to be a trainer in this state. Maine people are very passionate about their basketball. I think just there's more of a, I don't know if I want to say culture or foundation maybe down south, but it's just, it's kind of, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of, players to come out of down south, Kentucky, Indiana. I was 10 minutes away from Evansville, Indiana. So I think that might be the difference. But for passion, man, and love of the game, it's in its own different ways. But Maine is very passionate about their basketball as well. So I don't know if I could say one is different. One is over the other, just maybe a little different, if that makes sense.
Makes sense right there.
Yeah.
Growing up, was it strictly basketball, or you playing other things as well, or was it just basketball from day one?
I dabbled in other sports like baseball and soccer, but I was just obsessed with basketball, and I don't even think I understood why, but I always went outside and played. Always, man. I mean, hours on hours. My mom and dad, I remember they'd have to yell at me several times to come into the house just to go to bed. And this was like 6, 7 years old. It was just like not normal. So I just had a love for it, and I don't know. Yeah, no, it was just something that I'd always loved.
You remember how old you were when you just got into like your first organized basketball? Like around here, it tends to be like maybe like kindergarten, first
Oh
grade, second
yeah,
grade, stuff like that.
I think it was first grade. I think it was called like the NBA All Stars or something, and I was on like the Hawks or the Celtics or something like that. Yeah.
And I'm curious too because around here in the summertime, I don't even know if it's as much of a big thing now as it was back when I was growing up. Summer basketball camps are big in Maine. There's a couple big ones. There's Pine Tree down in Kobe and a couple others as well. Did you go to camps in Kentucky? And if so, did you go to like any of the big camps? Like I'm guessing like UK had a basketball camp or Louisville
Yeah.
put on a summer camp. You go to any of those?
I think that's maybe the difference too from like a place like Kentucky and Maine. There's such a tradition where, all the kids go to the UK or obviously, maybe a Louisville camp or something. And I mean, we'd have NBA and college players. I remember Jamal McGlure came to the local high school where I lived, and I was first, second grade at the time. And he came back to Henderson, Kentucky. That's where I was living, and put on a camp there, and played with us during the halftime. And Steve Masiello, who was a Kentucky player, he came back, and he was like, I don't know, best friends with his family was best friends with the pastor of the church in Henderson. So like, yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like such a culture where you had all these NBA and NCAA players coming back, putting on camps every single summer. So yeah, I always would go to them in the local high school camps. So that is a very big thing. I don't see that in Maine.
No, I mean, and the problem with that is we don't produce the same
Right.
caliber talent.
Right.
But yeah, little different. But
I've been talking to Troy Barnes about coming back and putting on maybe something that he would want to on his own. Like how Steph Curry does his like select camp.
Right.
Troy should do something like that, and I think it'd be awesome. It would up the belief that players from this area or from the state, excuse me, can play pro or do bigger and better if they wanted to.
exactly. So you said you moved to Maine around, was it 12 years old?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
First impression of Maine when you moved here?
Cold, and everything was I remember I couldn't believe in Machias how the closest movie theater was an hour and a half away, or the closest mall was an hour and a half away. Everything was so spread out, and everything in Kentucky was so close together.
But I'm guessing the one thing you had in Machias is the same thing that I had grown up before, Kent. You had a university right there, and as a
Yes.
as a diehard basketball fan, you had a gym you could go hoop in, and you had some good college hoops you could go watch.
Yes, and a gym to go to. I remember the first couple of months. It was like October when we moved up. It was right when school started, and I was so scared because my mom was telling me how snow came in like October, November, and I'm like, Mom, how do I shoot outside? And so, being close to the college when I got to go in there, I was like, okay. This is an easy way. Just I can get shots up, and it's in Jonesboro, Machias is 20 minutes from there. So I was like, oh, this is easy. I can just go here every other day and get shots up. So, yeah, no, it was very cool to watch college basketball and being so obsessed and passionate over the game. When I did like the Machias camp, that used to be big back when I was younger. The UMM Clipper camp. All the college guys would really gravitate towards me, and they would take me under their wing. And I remember doing hill sprints and training sessions with them as early as like 7th, 8th grade. They would drop me off at my house, and they'd they'd pick me up in the morning, and I'd go and train with them. So it was really cool that they just took me under their wing and kind of showed me how to develop my game and the work ethic it takes to be a successful college player.
So this would have been what, like early 2000s when you moved to Machias or that area?
Yes, it would have been 2001, 2002, I think, off the top of my head.
So and Machias had some squads at that point.
They did. Most people don't know they had a guy named Jamel Davila who was. I remember in the UMM camp, the coach told us that he was ranked ahead of Dwayne Wade, his like freshman to junior year in high school. So like they had some crazy talent, D1 players that somehow trickled down and wound up at UMM, and it was just insane to see those guys.
I remember one year that like they were ranked NAIA top 25. There was one year in particular they had just a nasty squad.
It might have been that year. Yeah. I'm almost positive it was. They had. I remember almost all the starting five. 1 or 2 years later, they were playing like Alabama, Kansas State, just crazy schools. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah. Remember Jeremiah Johnson?
Yes, JJ. Yeah, I do. Yep. JJ, AJ.
Yeah.
Who else? Aaron. Aaron was there, I think, and McCoy. I can't remember his first name.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the squad.
It was. So you got to Maine pretty much right in time to jump right into high school. First impression of Maine high school hoops, a little bit different than Kentucky. I'm guessing Kentucky, huge crowds, entire towns come out. It's kind of similar to Maine, maybe not the same size schools and stuff like that. But what were your first impressions of Maine high school basketball?
Very serious, in a small town like Machias. I think the first thing that I thought of was, wow, there's a lot of pressure to perform well. And, it was very new. I mean, obviously when I was younger, you're talking third grade and under. So I went to games, but I didn't understand it, I'm still in the crowd hanging with my friends, and we're horsing around and running through the halls at halftime. But when you're playing, I actually started my freshman year on varsity. Excuse me. So I realized how quickly, if you did well, you were loved, and how you kind of got scrutiny from a small town if you didn't do well, or if the coach or if the team didn't do well. And it was but it was out of as crazy as it sounds, I knew it was out of such a deep love and passion for the game. So there's a lot of pressure, man, honestly.
What kind of a tradition does Washington Academy have for high school hoops?
Back when I was there, the biggest thing was we were cursed. That, I remember there was 2 years that older players had made it to the state final game, or the Eastern Maine final game was what it was called back then. And they lost on like a half-court shot. I remember there was a story literally every year everyone would always talk about was how someone lost it from half court, and the other team in the state championship game stole the ball, shot it, obviously from half court. And then that was the game, and that was the losing play for the state championship game. And it was like, we were cursed. We'd never win. We'd never make it. And I remember how honestly pissed off that made me. Cause I just wanted to prove everyone that we weren't a curse and that, we could win it.
Now, school like Washington Academy, obviously you get some students that come in from outside the community. How many of your teammates came up with you from when you first moved to Maine versus kind of arrived like while you were in high school? Did you have pretty much the same group all the way through, or was it like kind of different kids coming in and out?
Yeah, we had the same kids from like my freshman year to senior year in high school, but we, with Washington Academy, we pulled from different towns. So a lot of the kids that I competed against in middle school, they were all of a sudden my teammates in high school. And that was very different, because you go from kids that you were kind of put against as 7th and 8th graders and compared against to now, you got to be on the same team and you got to work together. And I remember how hard that was for a lot of us.
And just curious too, like coming from a small town and kind of coming up with the same group, for you, how much of it was, I just want to be better, I'll go to the gym by myself, I'll get shots up and work on my game, versus I want my teammates to come with me and play with each other and kind of develop together? Were you strictly just like gym rat in the gym by yourself, or were you trying to get others involved and in there with you?
It's a great question. I know 2 of the seniors at that time, they took me under their wing, myself and one of their younger brothers, and we would always go to the gym my freshman year. and we'd lift, we'd go in and put shots up, play 2-on-2, 3-on-3. But I didn't understand. I wasn't mature, I should say, and I didn't understand how much it could impact players if we all came in and got working on our together. And so when those seniors left, I kind of gravitated to doing it by myself. But as you know, I mean, not everyone from the high school teams, and we didn't have AAU back then like there is now. So, the primarily like big way to get better was get in the gym on your own. Like there was only summer league. There was only, obviously you working on your own game or training, working with the college players that were there. And that was really it for like a small town back then. And that was like 10, 15 years ago. AAU only started to get big, and there was only 2 teams in the entire state when I was a sophomore. So, my sophomore year, not many of my teammates wanted to get work in. So that also made me kind of just say, all right, well, I can't sacrifice my love or the time that I want to use to get better for just because you guys don't want to put in work. So I primarily went to the gym on my own. And then from there, just tried to set the standard for the players that came up under me. And I remember I didn't understand it back then, but my biggest thing was I tried to build a culture in a work ethic that, if you put in the work, you can really achieve anything you want. And I just tried to show the younger players every single day that that's the standard at Washington Academy. And that is what we're going to keep it at.
So who were some of your classmates, teammates that you kind of came up with throughout high school? I know a couple names. I just want you to name drop a little bit here.
Oh, okay. Yep. Noah Von Rotes. Mm-hmm. He is probably one of the most athletic people I've ever played with. 5'10", long arms. I remember one day in practice, he windmilled it. And, you got to remember, this is still back when like there's post players. So, it wasn't 5 guards on the floor. Like this was maybe one of the most athletic kids I've ever played with. And I, to this day, still think he could have gone D2 or D1 if he really was passionate about it. Bryce Colbeth was our center, and he was a 10-10 or 15-10 guy. Very underrated player. We had, other great guys like Justin Morin. We had rest in peace. He's passed away now, but Sam Stevens, who was another just great kid, great guy. Both him and Justin Morin were defensive players, knew their role, grabbed rebounds, made big time stops, always guarded the other players, best players. And we were just a tough squad, man. I know my senior year, we had 12 or 13 seniors, if that gives you an idea. So we were experienced, we were deep, and we were tired of losing.
What's Down East hoops like? I'm from the county. The county has a particular brand of basketball, and it's pretty similar out throughout the county. What's Down East hoops like? How would you describe the style of play?
Fast. Yeah. Fast. We wanted to put 90, 100 points up on the board, and we wanted to just push the ball as much as possible.
So you guys were Class C at the time, right?
We were, yes.
Who were your rivals?
Callis.
And Callis is good, right? And
they had the undefeated squad with like Brandon Toma and Cal Shorey and Chris Taylor and Sam Bell, Ron Terrell. I mean, dude, I remember you want to talk about an eye-opening experience like you asked me before? It was the 3rd game of my freshman year. We had the Callis squad, the undefeated squad, and they beat us by 65 points at home. I'm seeing Brandon Toma. I was this is probably still one of my favorite players in Maine basketball to this day. Yeah. I had never come down, tried to make a move, and just felt like this guy always knew what I was going to do even before I knew it. Like he had such a great instinct and sense of knowing where the ball was and where to go. That squad was incredible. It is probably one, if not the best team that has come out of Washington County in the past 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like it's one thing to have a rival, right, that you go up and you battle against and just it be a rivalry game. But what's it like when your rival is just nasty like that? Like what does that do to those type of games?
It was tough. I mean, you never go into a game thinking you're going to lose, of course, but it's just so it's so hard, man. I mean, they stood 6'7", 6'5", 6'5", 6 foot, 5'11". It it was crazy. You know, that there was no space on the floor, especially in the high school gym. You know, there's no space. They're long, they're athletic, they can all shoot, they can all play. So it was tough, man. But it made me want to get in the gym and work. You know, I think what separated myself when I was so young was I was so competitive that even though we went in, we got beat. We weren't going to I was going to be motivated by that. I was going to say, wow, you know, if this is something that a Down East team can do, we can do it as well. So, you know, and I don't think we got beat by 65 ever again after that. I think it was, you know, 15, 20-point games. But that first game was just like, whoa, like this is crazy. But I don't know if you remember Ross Griffin, but I mean, he was from Jonesport Beals when I was a 8th grader. And I mean, this guy was catching it off the wall in Jonesport, putting it between his legs and two-hand, dunking it. It's like this is just, I was like, my goodness, man, this is what I got to compete against. And I'm 5'8", 130 pounds soaking wet. Like, you know, I'm like, man, I got to really get in the gym. So it just motivated you all around.
And then obviously your teams kind of got better as you went through high school. What were some of the first couple of years like? So when did you guys first win the tournament?
We went my freshman year, and I remember, crazy enough, I got player of the game. We played, I think it was Piscataquis. It was they were either the first game or they were the second game. I can't remember, but we played Piscataquis, I believe, and I think I had like 13 points, 6, 7 assists, and got player of the game. And this was the auditorium day, so, you know, after the game, they took you up, they had you on the radio, you know, you got interviewed at the end, and you were on camera, and so, you know, it was like cloud nine. And I remember that next game, I was awful, because it was just like, I just wanted to continue to do well. But we made it my freshman year. We went in as, I believe we were the 3rd seed, I can't remember again, but we went in my freshman year. We actually only had a prelim game my sophomore year. We went in as the number 1 seed my junior year, and then obviously went in number 1 seed my senior year as well.
So you talked about making it to Bangor your freshman year. What was your first Bangor auditorium experience like as a player? And had you gone to the auditorium before, like just to watch tournament games, or was it your first time in the auditorium?
First time ever, and it was crazy. I mean, it's, you know, being last week at the Cross Insurance Center, you know, it's like everything's so spread out. In the auditorium, it's like everyone's on top of you.
Right.
It's insane. You feel like the crowd is just 2 inches behind you in every direction around you. You know, it was, but if I'm being honest, like, I'm making it sound very nerve-wracking, and it was also very exciting, because at the end of the day, you know, as a competitor, I get to put on a show for more people. You know, I get to play the game that I love in front of more people and show them, you know, how much work I've put in, or how much work as a team we've put in. So it was fun, man. It was fun. It was exciting. I think that's what motivated me and allowed me to have such a great first game, that I was so excited to be in an atmosphere like this.
So I think naturally when you're like a freshman or a sophomore, you know, all you want to do is just make the varsity, get playing time, stuff like that, and your goals may be more individual, you know, in terms of what you want to accomplish in high school. But as you get to junior and senior year, you start maybe having bigger team goals. At what point were you like, I want to win a gold ball?
I think that's a great question. I think for me it was obviously sophomore year. I went through a lot, like, personal stuff with my family and everything. So when we lost the prelim, you know, I talked about this in the paper a couple years ago, but I remember my sophomore year after the prelim loss, I did very bad. I was throwing up before the game. Just one of those type of weeks where you were sick, and, you know, kind of course the game had to fall on that week. And I remember how disappointed the entire town was in the type of year we had. In that was the first year also that WA had never been to the tournament in like 20 plus years. So it was, you know, there was a culture of us making it to the Bangor Auditorium. And that year that we didn't, I took it very personal and upon myself. And then added on to that, we went as the number 1 seed my junior year. We had only lost 1 game, I think, which was, of course, to Calais at their home. And then we lose in the semifinals, and I had a horrible game again. I had, I think, 2 or 4 points. So it was just my junior year, I think, was when I was like, I'm either going to win a gold ball or I'm going to die trying. And I put in so many hours that summer, up at 5, back home at 10, in the summer, 10 p.m. I was going to make sure that I had no regrets, and I did all that I could to win a gold ball. So for me, that junior year on top of that sophomore year catapulted, I think, was the beginning of everything after that point in my life. That I was deciding that I wanted to not just win a gold ball, but I was going to succeed in whatever I wanted to do, honestly.
I'm just curious. You mentioned a little bit earlier the Callis teams and Toma, and him just kind of being. He was a special player.
Yeah.
Who were some of the other guys you kind of battled during the regular season? I'm not quite sure who else you guys played besides Callis, what your schedule was like, but who were some of the guys you battled against throughout high school?
Yeah, let me try to think. I know in the tournament, Joe McCluskey, he was, UMFK.
Yep.
He was very, very. I mean, we only had one game in my senior quarterfinal game, but he was tough. Yeah, Brandon Toma. I got 1 year with him though. Oh, geez, it was so long ago. Rashad Frazier. He is, I don't know if you remember him, but he was 3 or 4 years at George Stevens Academy, went on, moved down to Ohio his senior year, and went on to play for the Ohio State football team. Like that type of athlete, freak of an athlete.
Yeah.
He never played football in his life, and then played for 1 year in high school, and went on to play high major Division I. So we had some battles. Blake Chase from Narraguagus. We had our battles. Steve Strout from Narraguagus. Machias, my freshman and sophomore year, there was some big battles then. But that kind of, when I think they moved to Class D, we stopped playing them. So that's why the rivalry kind of went more towards Callis. Callis had Jordan Lehman. He was Ed Lehman's son. We had battles for 2 or 3 years, and I'm sure there's several more, man. I can't think of everyone off the top of my head. And I honestly, that Ellsworth team, I can't remember their names, but the last 2 years we played a Class B Ellsworth team that was just phenomenal. So yeah, man, a lot of good battles, but can't remember everyone off the top of my head.
So senior year obviously ended really, really good for you guys. I'm going to get to that in a second. You had to battle through Callis when Callis was just the squad for a long period of time during those 2000s. What was it like that senior year, get into the tournament? You guys went in as the number 1 seed, right?
We did, yep.
Did you feel an enormous amount of pressure, or did you feel confident? What was it like once the tournament finally hit, knowing this was it, this was your last shot to try to achieve that goal and get a state championship?
What's funny is I never realized in the tournament that it was my last year, and maybe I didn't want to think about it, but I keep, even to this day, I remember telling some of my athletes, we never made it past the semifinals. My freshman year, we lost. Junior year, we lost. So that major thing when we were going in at my senior year was, I just wanted to make it past the semifinals,
right.
and then I'll think about whatever's after that. And it was even more pressure because we went in as the number 1 seed again. This is just the same story that we had my junior year. We went in as the number 1 seed. We were favored to win the whole thing. Myself, Noah, Bryce, and we had some talented seniors that year. So it was just like, it was an enormous amount of pressure because it seemed like everything was happening all over again. We're in the number 1 seed again. We were matched up where if we did make it to the Eastern Maine Finals, we'd play a Callis. So it was a lot of pressure.
You remember who you played first round?
Yeah, we played. Who did Joe McCluskey play for in high school? Was it PVHS?
Yeah, PVHS.
Yeah, so we played them first round. Semis, we played Dover Foxcroft.
Okay.
And which they were tough. I mean, they had several players that year that went on to play Division II, Division I football and baseball. And then we had obviously Callis, the Eastern Maine Final.
All right, so let's talk about this Callis game. Obviously, you battled against them all throughout high school, all 4 years. and then this team is standing in your way from getting to a state championship game. What was the game like?
It was familiar. We knew who they were. We knew what they were probably going to do. We knew that. I mean, even to this day, I always say that I have so much respect for Ed Lehman, Coach Ed Lehman, because I know what type of drive he had to win, and so, we knew that they were going to give us a game. But you know what? I remember weeks before, or I'm sorry, I remember days before we played them. We kept hearing, if you make it to the finals, and so does Callis, you can't beat a great team 3 times. You probably have heard that. Like,
Yeah.
how many? And it was, I kept hearing that, and I'm just like, I don't know. It just made me mad. I'm like, dude, they've beat us for 4 years. Like, they can take a couple more L's.
Yeah.
So it was familiar, but we wanted to win. We didn't want to lose to them. We wanted to be the one that made it to the finals, and we felt like it was our time.
What was the final result? Obviously, actually, I'm not going to spoil it. Maybe the fans don't know. What was the final result?
We won. Oh yeah, we won. We won. It was crazy. I remember we were up like 15 with, like 6 minutes to go, and then we made like 3 or 4 or 5 turnovers straight, and they battled back to, I think, bring it within like 2 or 3 with minutes left, and pulled away at the end with some key stops and a couple free throws here and there. So we won.
And then this is a question I got for you. So it's
Okay.
just to get through. Back then, what was the Eastern Maine Championship? To win 3 games, to win an Eastern Maine Championship, to go through all these teams that you battled throughout your entire high school career, to have that feeling of achievement of winning Eastern Maines. How hard is it to turn around and then focus on playing one more game for the state championship, which was the ultimate prize? Like, was that tough, or was it just like, all right, Eastern Maine Championship, another game done, we got one more to go, or was it kind of like you had to build yourself back up for it?
No, it was, the craziest part was, it was really easy because we had so much defeat before that. We had expectations of getting so far every single year, and we came up short, and we feel like we choked. So, and again, with 13 seniors, it was, I thought it was very easy to re-put our focus back and shift it to the state championship. And because the main thing that we all said was, we're over the semifinals now.
Right.
And we just had this feeling that it was our year after we got over that semifinal hump. So yeah, man, very, very easy, I think, to shift focus and get that state championship game.
Who'd you guys play in states?
Deergo.
And was it in the auditorium, or did you guys play in Western Maine?
We played in Augusta.
Okay. Who was playing for Deergo? Did they have what's the kid that went to Notre Dame?
Oh,
Tom.
No, that was the year before. Tom Knight. Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, that was the year before.
So
they made it. That was their 3rd year straight, though, to the state game. I think they made it twice before, and Callis beat them. And this was their 3rd straight year to the state championship game.
how'd this game play out?
We won.
And I think I just saw, did you just put up some video online of you dribbling out the clock or doing something in the final seconds, or was that Eastern Maine Championship?
Yeah, no. That was the state game. I stood at half court, and I just pounded the ball so hard. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel real. It was like, I don't even know if I can put it into words. It's, everything kind of races. For me, it did. It all raced through my mind. It was like, dang, all the 5 a.m. wake up calls that I had, the thousands of shots that I put up, the ups and the downs, going through and with your brothers, we were so close, 13 seniors. We had been together for, 3 years at least, almost everyone on varsity. So it was very, very surreal. And I just pounded the ball, just like, I don't know, like trying to maybe wake me up or something. But it was something I'll never forget, man. Never forget.
What was the ride back home like? Was there a fire truck escort waiting for you guys?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. We didn't sleep. I remember we all went over to one of my teammates' house, and we just stayed up like all night, and then we went to our ceremony the next day, and it was just like, we didn't want to go to bed. We were on cloud 9, because what most people might not know is that was the first state championship Washington Academy had ever won, and we broke the curse. You know what I mean? It was like, it was crazy. We were hanging out the windows of the bus. When we stopped and got food at a gas station, we were all screaming and telling everyone we're the state champs. It was just like, it was insane, man. And like I said, it was a moment I'll never forget.
So that was your last high school game for Washington Academy.
That was.
Did you have one more high school game? Did you play in the McDonald's game?
I did. Yep, I did.
What was that like?
I think I have 40. I think I still have some film. I have never posted it, but that was when I had committed to go to Lee Academy Prep, and so I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of feeling myself. Where it's like state champ, I was nominated for a third team, all Maine. It was like MVP of the tournament. I started to put in a lot of work, and I started to get schools were beginning to be interested in me. What most people don't know is my senior year, I had no one offering me.
Yep.
No one was looking at me. And so I was starting to get a little bit of bites here and there. And so it was that time where I was honestly, as sad as it is, I was starting to feel myself. So I was pulling from half, man. And it was one of those games where it was going in, and I felt good. It was fun. It was fun.
And Hustle is just a great gym to play in.
I love their court. I love their rims. I feel like when you shoot on those rims, the ball's just swallowed.
Yep.
The ball was really soft, so I have soft hands when I shoot, so I was able to grip it well. It was fun.
So where'd you wind up going to school? What did your decision come down to? Did you wind up going to Lee, or did you go somewhere else?
Yep. No, I spent a year at Lee Academy Prep where I met my wife there and received a Division II scholarship. It was a very good year.
Where'd you wind up going to school?
So you'll laugh. I had two choices. I had a financial aid package put together to go to Chaminade, which is a Division II school in Hawaii.
Yep.
Or I had a full ride to go to Alaska Fairbanks. And because my dream was, Division I, Division II scholarship, that was my dream. I wanted to get a scholarship. I chose Alaska, and it was crazy.
So tell us what happened out there in Alaska.
Negative 55 degrees one night. That's what happened.
Okay.
It was negative 55. It was 20 hours of darkness. It does the 20 hours of darkness in the winter and then 20 hours of light in the summer. And it was a completely different it was a completely different league. I remember I had a very rude wake up call, and I think that's what I tell players now. I see so many kids in Maine, they struggle with understanding what's out there, and that they're not the best. They're not as good as they think they are.
Right.
I went in with such, and I was young, I was immature, but I went in with such a big head because I was such a big fish in a small pond in Machias, Maine. And when you realize at these schools that you're just another player, they can replace you. They can put someone else out on the court. And I couldn't understand that because at Washington Academy, it didn't matter if I missed a practice. It didn't matter if I was injured. Like, I knew I was going to come back and have a starting spot. So it was very different. And I think nothing changed with my work ethic, but what changed was my expectations. I just expected to get a spot. I expected to be played a lot. And I wasn't played at all. I couldn't defend. I was a very bad on-ball defender. I didn't know how to get over screens. And, in Washington Academy Class C and D, let's be honest, almost everyone plays zone. And it was in college, everyone played man. I didn't understand like fundamental man-to-man concepts and strategies. And, I didn't understand communication. So I found out how quickly I was behind just the average player at that Division II level. And I struggled. I struggled with playing time, and I struggled with being so far away from home, and I struggled with it being so cold.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say it's one thing to go to school and then just struggle with the adjustment, but to be that far from home has to just add to that frustration and just the struggle overall.
I could never travel home. It was, it's on the opposite side of the earth, and in Division II, Division I, you only get so many days. And by the time I would take a plane flight and, or look it up to take a plane flight to get home, it would take 4 or 5 days. And we only had like 5 or 6 days off during Christmas and Thanksgiving. So yeah, I didn't go home that whole year, and it was very hard.
So, how long did you stay out in Alaska, and where was the next move after that?
I stayed only 1 year, and then I talked to my coach at Alaska, and we both decided it was best for me to find a new place. Um, yeah, I wasn't happy. I think he was looking to take the team in another direction, and I decided to do a walk on at Iona College in New Rochelle, New York. Um, I sent them my film. They really, really loved me. They gave me a guaranteed walk-on spot, which meant I didn't have to try out. I was officially on the team, and yeah, I got to be a little bit closer to home. So that was a little bit better.
And then what was that year like? Did you stick around there for more than 1 year, or was it just another 1 year thing out there?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I was only there for a couple months. I remember it was the day after we got our gear and we got all of our shorts and warm up equipment and stuff like that in jerseys. I twisted my ankle and I tore my meniscus all in the same play. I was chasing down one of the players and caught on his shoe. And like Zion, like it happened to Zion. I tell players that the the twisting of my ankle was so violent, I exploded the bottom of my shoe and it ripped off, and tore all four ligaments and tore my meniscus all in the same place. So um, I was devastated, man. I mean, Division 1 was like my goal, and it was something that I had set my sight on after we won the state championship. And to work. I mean, dude, I spent 9-10 hours in the gym all summer after being let go from Alaska. So it was like, when that happened, and trying to focus on now being a Division 1 player, and then kind of to me having it all taken from under me, I was devastated and I was depressed. And I remember just coming back home, and it took me about a year to get back into the game of basketball. I never felt right. I'm a primarily small guard, so I relied on quickness and getting into the lane and jumping in the air, hanging, making several different motions with the ball and finishing crazy. And when I hurt my ankle, yeah, it all felt different. I felt a step slower. I felt like I couldn't make moves as agile as I used to. So it was very, very, it was very mentally, it was very hard mentally, but it was also very hard physically.
So for athletes, there comes a time and a point in which you eventually realize, like, I'm not going to be playing forever. There's going to be
Right.
life after college days or high school days. At what point did you start looking ahead, like, what, like, probably not going to be playing competitive basketball for the rest of my life? What are some things I may enjoy or like to do once my playing days are done?
Yeah, I tell my wife all the time how blessed that how grateful I am that that injury happened. As crazy as it sounds, and I have athletes that they've gone through injuries this year, and I always tell them that there is a positive to this, And for me, I realized I was meant for something bigger than myself. I think whenever I looked at professional, or I looked at all the stuff that I wanted to do, it was very self-sufficient and self kind of succeeding. And when I was injured, I was in a relationship, with my girlfriend, who was my is my wife now, and she had been basically following me everywhere. She was going to follow me to Alaska. She moved in with me when we were in New York, and so when I had that injury and moved back home, I decided to, propose to her and get married. And that was the change of everything. It made me realize that there are things, as crazy as it sounds, bigger than myself. And, I was excited to make it about other people and not about me anymore. And it was obviously the best thing that's ever happened to me. You realize in life, I think one of the most important things is realizing that we're meant on this earth to pour into other people and to leave a legacy and to, impact others. And so when that injury happened, I went to University of Maine at Machias. I, finished out my 2 years there, and that's where I slowly started to get into training.
So how did the whole training thing come about? Was it just kind of like back in the day when you were a younger guy and some of the kids or some of the guys that went to Machias kind of took you under their wing and kind of worked you out? Was that kind of what you did?
You
Uh,
got it, man.
yeah.
Yep, that was exactly how it was. And then you realize how fun it is, and you realize why those older guys did it. When you were that age, I didn't charge anything. It was my last 2 years at Machias. I just let these kids kind of jump into the workouts with me. And I mean, my workouts were crazy. I did, believe it or not, I did 2,000 makes every single summer. So I'm sorry, I did 2,000 makes a day every single summer. So I did close to 200,000 makes in the entire summer. And on top of that, I would do hill sprints. I had this like little piece of equipment that was a tire. I would tie a rope around it with a belt, and I would, harness it to myself, and I would drag a tire up a hill. I do defensive slides. I do backwards. I do sprints. And then I'd get into the pool. I'd do pool workouts, or I'd do sand workouts on the beach. I'd do an hour or 2 hour of ball handling. I mean, and then I did the weight room. I was obsessed. I was absolutely just into the game. And they would jump in with me, and I loved being able to show them little things and kind of how it made them feel, how they were able to do it in their games, and send me messages and stuff like how it worked. And I just started to fall in love with like you were saying, that next step of what the game could offer you instead of what you could offer it, kind of.
So when you're younger and you're working out and you're working on your game, you could be as crazy as you want. It's as far as you can push yourself in terms of what you could do in a session. But when you're helping somebody or you're developing somebody and they're coming to you for help, how have you evolved over time from being maniacal and crazy and doing some of the things you did individually versus having a set program, like a rigid program for somebody? How have you evolved over time?
Yeah, I think I was my first guinea pig. I'm a 5'8" non-athletic guard. I have very short legs. I was quick, I was fast, but not crazy fast. And so what I really became obsessive was like studying the game. I wanted to know, how did this player get by this player when, he was shorter or not as athletic. I wanted to know, what did, players like, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or Allen Iverson, what did they do to get a competitive edge or to be able to get ahead? Gilbert Arenas, that's who I got the 2,000 makes from a day, was from Gilbert Arenas. And so what I did was I learned how to become whoever I wanted to be in basketball. And I just apply that to the athlete now. What I've gotten better at is understanding how everyone's so different. And so every workout that I do, it's personalized around a player's strengths, around their weaknesses, around their role, around what type of shots they're going to get, what type of options and situations they'll be in. Everyone has certain spots that they tend to go to and get shots off of. So I personalize everything around that. And then, of course, a player's goals. Obviously I gravitate more towards players that are obsessed and passionate about the game and getting better and have big goals for themselves. So, the bigger the goal and the more crazier the goal that a player comes to me with, the kind of more excited and hyped I get about it, because it just reminds me of who I was.
Yeah, and that's what leads me to my next question. So obviously you were the definition of a gym rat when you were growing up, and that kind of carried out all throughout your playing days, and you were just going to be the hardest worker and just do whatever it takes to be great. Do you have moments of frustration where someone comes to you like, hey, I want to work with you, can you make me a better player, but they don't show the same work ethic that you showed personally? Like, do you have those moments of frustrations, or have you just learned to kind of adapt and just deal with the person, depending on who they are?
That's a great question. The first thing is, I'm in year 5 right now, so I'm still fairly new in this business, believe it or not. And my first 2 or 3 years, I would just let it happen. I would get players that I didn't think was there for the right reasons. I thought their parents wanted them there.
Yep.
And you can just feel how interested someone is and while they're doing it. And I remember how honestly unhappy I was, because I love basketball. This is not something I just do to waste my time, or I don't just train to make money from it or to bypass, my life. Like, I thoroughly love this game, and I think it's beautiful, and I want everyone else to find that same passion. And so at the beginning, I actually just shut my mouth and I didn't really say much, but I realized how unhappy I was. And over time, I got more secure with myself to start holding my value, where, now if a player isn't there for the right reasons, I give them their money back and I won't work with them. And it's not because I think I'm better than them. It's not because their time is not worth anything to me. It's just I realized that I might not be a right fit for them. And if they don't truly care about the game and about development, then I'm just the wrong person for them. And, maybe there's someone else that can help them, better than me. So it used to be I get frustrated. Now it's, if you don't want to be here for the right reasons, as much as I love basketball and I love you, you need to find somebody else to work with.
So I think the word busy is an understatement for how, exactly what you are right now. Anyone who follows you on social media sees you have something going on every weekend. You're constantly on the road. What is some of the things you got going on right now? So obviously individual trainer, but you got these camps going on. You got this top 30 thing going on. What are some of the different things you're into right now? What can people expect here?
Yeah, outside of private training, which I'm starting to gravitate more towards high school and college and pros, just from so much demand. I'm hosting academy classes. So, traveling so much to so many different areas, I have limited time. And so what I've done is I've partnered with gyms or recs around the entire state. And I'm in different places like Bangor, Portland, Dover, Foxcroft, Waterville, Rockland. And, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just bring kids in a group setting, and I'm trying to still give them a personalized approach around progression and around development. And so I have that. Of course, I do something very under the radar I don't talk about much is my team training, where I have teams that bring me in and I work with them. I develop a training system around their offense, their players, what they want to get out of it. And, I work closely with a couple teams right now in high school. The camps, the biggest thing this year are my top 30 camps, where in each county, I'm trying to do a middle school top 30 camp. We bring the top 15 boys, top 15 girls from 6th through 8th grade in. And, the biggest motivation behind that was something that Nick Kaner Medley shared. He shared a post that showed 0.02% or 0.2% of Maine athletes, Maine high school basketball players, girls and boys, make it to college. And it was just like an eye opener. And it's like, we have so much talent. There is no reason for that low of a number. And so what I'm trying to do is, with a bunch of other, trainers' help and high school coaches, high school players and college players, is I'm trying to bring the top young players from each county into the gym and trying to show them the blueprint of how to continue to love the game, develop themselves, and get exposure and get better. So we're doing that at a middle school level, and then I'm doing that obviously at the high school level, where last year we had the top 30 high school camp, which is basically the 15 of girls and boys underclassmen. I'm sorry, the 30 underclassmen and upperclassmen of Maine and the entire state. So we had, close to 120 players all over the state in high school last year. And it was crazy. It was fun. So those are the biggest things right now, outside of also my summer. I know it's a lot, man. Outside of my summer skills camps, I hold, of course, summer skills camps all over the state as well.
Anything in particular you're looking forward to the most, or is it just all exciting right now?
It's all exciting, but I love the training. I love camps. But there's nothing like off season. I love players getting in and just a newfound focus, newfound motivation. And I'm better. Some of the players that I work with in college, like I work with the UMaine starting point guard, Sergio Darwish. And, right now he either is close to, or he is leading the entire team, his team, in points per game. And, last year he was second, third maybe, and it might have been by a long shot. And I worked with him 3 times last year, every single week, all summer. It's players like that I don't get to see all year. Now I get them back into the gym. I get to see how much better they've gotten, how much more they've grown, but they also get to see how much better I've gotten. And so I get so excited about the off season, because it's a time to get these guys and girls back in the gym and just work for more, get better and progress, and just iron sharpening iron, with each other.
So you mentioned everything you got going on right now. I'm just curious, bigger picture, where else you want to take this thing?
I want to make it bigger. I want to be able to, at some point, make it into more of a brand where I can bring coaches on and other trainers around the state. I can show them, because I do, this was a little insecurity as well, but I do think I have a system of training that really does work, and it provides great success and great progress for the athletes. I think there's a certain thing that I do in a 3-step process. If I had to break it into that I think a lot of coaches and trainers could use. So it's getting them into, my brand, getting them to then show players that around not just maybe Maine, but the entire world or the entire U.S. So it's just scaling it, making it bigger, making it better. I'm working with Black Bear North right now in Bangor. I'm working with Blue Wave in Portland. I'm working with the Firecrackers in Southern Maine and Portland area. So, Gilman Street Basketball, I'm working with them in Waterville. So I'm starting to connect, partner, and work with some of the top AAU and basketball organizations in the entire state. And like we were saying before, just improve Maine basketball,
Right.
Help these kids develop and get better, and show I think the biggest thing that I've seen, I'm sorry, I think the biggest thing I've seen grow within myself is the passion to make Maine basketball better in just the last year. It's gone from making these kids in Maine accomplish their goals in state to, okay, like, we got talent in this state. We can compete, especially from a girl side. We can compete with almost every other state in the United States from a girl side. Like, why aren't these kids getting out there and getting more recognition? So it's partnering up with these programs, pushing kids to get out there to get more exposure, creating opportunities for them, and then of course developing them. So that's my biggest mission right now, and trying to obviously use my business to scale and do all of that.
I like it. That's what it's all about right there. I
Yep.
want to put you on the spot real quick before we get up out of here. All right.
Okay.
So here we go. So as we all know, basketball does not sleep. State championships are this weekend, but you're looking ahead. You got all your stuff going on in the summertime here. It doesn't stop.
Yep.
So real quick, I want you to give me some names that people need to look out for on the AAU circuit this summer. Who are some kids in Maine that you work with that people, if they don't know them by now, they will know them this summer moving forward here?
Yeah. The first one that I can think of is Wyatt Hathaway. He's from Levitt. He just hit his 1,000 points this year as a junior. He's playing with Blue Wave this offseason, and I think he is, obviously he is one of the top players in the state, but I think he still has another level to go. And I think Blue Wave is one of the best programs that is going to help bring that stuff out of him. I think that they'll help him in a game setting, in a development setting, understand how to reach that next level. So I'd say Wyatt. There's a kid, I haven't worked with him recently, but I worked with him, all going up into high school. Cash McClure from Maranacook. He's absolutely phenomenal. He's a great kid. He's one of the best in the state. I think, from girls that haven't signed yet or haven't committed, I work with a ton of freshmen and sophomores like Audrey Mackey from Oceanside. I think she is someone that's really going to turn heads over the next few years. I think she was KVAC first team as a freshman. Camille Clement, she's from Greeley. She just signed to Northeastern as a junior. She just hit her 1,000 points this year as a junior. I personally think she has another level as well, and she could go down as Greeley's all-time leading scorer if she really wanted to. So she's a big one. I've started to work with this kid, Calvin Catchings, from Gardner. He's 6'5", 6'6", as a freshman, guard. And I think that if he can really get hungry and get competitive to get better, he can take his game to another level. Man, there's so many others. There's so many others that I could talk about. Allison Alley. Allison Alley is a girl from Stearns. She doesn't really play AAU, as crazy as it sounds, but she could be the top player in the state as a senior if she really wanted to be. So there's her. Maddie Russell. We didn't want to talk about county girls. Maddie Russell, Anna Jandro, Faye Schoberg. Those are 3 girls from the county that I all work with, and they're studs. They're superstars. I think Maddie Russell could go Division I, honestly, if she really, really wanted to. She's 5'8", 5'7", maybe. And she's hungry. She's probably one of the most competitive and hungry young girls I've ever been around. Yeah, no, there's so many more. If you want them, I could go on forever, but those are just the ones right off the top of my head that I think I've seen over the last week and worked with. So that's why they're at the top of my head.
I like it, and like you said, I'm sure there's a ton more, and we're gonna find out as summer wears on with your camps, your top 30 camps, all this stuff.
Yes.
These names are just gonna come out. So all kinds of big things on the horizon here for it's Ben Teer training, right? It's what the program's called.
Teer basketball training.
Teer basketball training. So all kinds of big things on the rise.
Yes,
Before
sir.
we get up out of here, I like to give my guests one last chance to get anything off their chest. If there's any controversies they want to clear, if there's anything they want to just say or get out there, the floor is yours to just say one last thing before we get up out of here.
Yeah, no, just follow me on all social media platforms, Instagram at Coach Ben Teer, TikTok, I'm big on TikTok now. All the young kids are there at Coach Ben Teer, and on Facebook, Teer Basketball Training. I want to continue to help Maine basketball get better. And if any coaches want to reach out and contact, schedule any practices, any sessions, any camps. It's all about bettering Maine basketball. So can't thank enough what you're doing, Tom, and I appreciate you allowing me to be on here, man, and loved the questions, loved everything about it.
Absolutely. So shout out to Ben for coming through. All kinds of big things on the horizon on his end. Maybe some partnership stuff coming up soon. You guys are going to have to stay tuned for that. We'll see what happens there. But that's it for this week's episode of Big Time, the podcast. Make sure to tune in next week for another big episode as always. Until then, we will see you